Hello, I'm Waldemar Januszczak, the art critic of the Sunday Times, and welcome to this exclusive preview of the Velazquez exhibition at the National Gallery in London. Now, we're going to be looking at all of the show, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to come and see it for yourselves. You must, because it's one of the exhibitions of the year, perhaps the exhibition of the year. Velazquez was born in Seville in southern Spain in 1599, and he was ferociously talented even as a young man. Some of his earliest pictures are these scenes of taverns and kitchens. They're called bodegones after the Spanish word bodega, which means a tavern, or a kind of pub. And what's marvellous about them is pretty obvious, isn't it? Look how tangible everything is here. The eggs, cooking in this beautiful glazed pot. So all these wonderful still life details take your breath away, and you tend to think that's what these pictures are. They're just beautiful evocations of humble lives and simple places. But they're not, you know. There's always much more to them than that. Over here, there's a couple of these bodegones where if you look in the background, you can see rather miraculously some religious scenes. I mean, this is Christ at the house of Martha and Mary. So what are these religious scenes doing at the backs of these simple pictures of kitchens? Well, I think they're making explicit something which is implicit in all the bodegones, which is their religious meaning. Okay, they look just like simple kitchen interiors or scenes from taverns, but they're not just that. They're pictures with a very powerful moral message. In all of them, almost, you get young faces and old faces being combined. And these are pictures about the fragility of life and the importance of salvation. The young people in the bodegones have their whole lives ahead of them, but in the end they'll end up like the old people in the bodegones, wrinkled, poor, in need of God's help. Now, I particularly like this one. It hangs usually in the National Gallery. Every time I see it, it always attracts me, because it's the Immaculate Conception, it's the Virgin Mary, shown in such a way as to emphasize the fact that she was born without original sin. A lot of people say this is actually a portrait of Velazquez's wife, Juana, whom he married round about now. And I believe it, because think of all those virgins in all those paintings, in all those cathedrals in Spain, all the ones who seem to be hired from central casting. They're so different from this very real, very tangible Spanish teenager. Look at her top lip, for example. There's just a little touch of darkness there, as if one day there'll be a kind of moustache. Who had ever seen the Virgin Mary looking as real as this? When Velazquez was 23, he moved to Madrid, and the Spanish king, Philip IV, had his portrait painted by this thrusting young painter from Seville. And so good was the portrait that Velazquez produced that Philip IV immediately said, "I will not let myself be painted by any other artist in Spain." And from then on, Velazquez, at the age of 24, became the court painter. When Velazquez became the Spanish court painter, it wasn't only the king, Philip IV, that he painted the rest of the family too. He also painted the royal children, the royal horses, the royal dwarfs, and the royal dogs. There's so much in this last room to enjoy and admire, but I want to draw your attention to this extraordinary suite of royal princesses that you find in here, because at first sight they all look the same, don't they? This is actually Queen Mariana, and over here is the Infanta Margarita. And over here is another Infanta, who is Maria Theresa. Now, you immediately see what the problem was that the Habsburgs faced. Well, these three different princesses look exactly the same. Why? Because the Habsburgs were intermarrying furiously in order to hang on to the power. So when Philip IV's first wife, Isabella, died, he actually ended up marrying his own niece. That's Queen Mariana over here. Two very unexpected lovers. This is Mars, the god of war, although he doesn't look like it, does he? He looks like a rather nervous middle-aged man, rather than this omnipotent god of mythology. Next to him in the exhibition is his famous lover, Venus. Now you must recognise her. She's usually known as the Rokeby Venus, but that's only because for a number of years she hung in a stately home called Rokeby Place. Her real title is Venus at her toilet, and what we're watching is the goddess inspecting herself in the mirror. This is Velazquez's only nude, and so therefore it's his only great back view of a nude. But what a back view it is. Don't you just wish that she would turn around and show you the rest of her charms? It's a spectacular bit of painting. The flesh feels so tangible. This isn't some airy-fairy goddess from out there in the mythology books. This is a woman you can touch and, in my case, want very much to stroke. And because it's a back view, you tend to think she doesn't really mind that you're there. You're just a voyeur who's watching her from a distance. But, and this is another moment of genius from Velazquez, if you look in the reflection in the mirror she's holding, you can see that she's looking out. And if you can see her face, that means she can see you. So this picture locks you in this triangular mind game, typical Velazquez. You're lusting after her, but she knows that you're lusting